such a case-by-case situation. I can tell you what the normal is. This is the youngest exception to the norm that I've had. And I've had over 20-some years of ministry, I've had 2 times young girls around 5 years old have just been absolute genuine, understood relationship, and have come alive and been ready for that. No, 3. But never had a boy that young. It tends to be for a girl, it's somewhere normally between 8 to 10 years old if they've been raised in the church when they start to come alive to relationship and consequence and life and where they're ready to make a decision. And that's a normal time frame, 8 to 10, sometimes 12 or so. For a boy, almost never before 10 years old. You know, they're kill, break, you know, before, that's about it. But they start to come alive more to consequence and relationships after age of 10. Often it's even 12 to 14 for a boy. It's just different in how they mature relationally. But everyone's different. And so you deal with it, you try and talk to them and just know what's going on. Second of all is the spiritual warfare side. I want you to understand that it is very normal when someone is getting ready to decide to be stepping forward in their faith in some capacity like this for spiritual warfare to occur. I mean, I've had families tell me their worst argument they've had in their whole marriage was on the way to church to be baptized. I mean, I've had numerous situations in their situation. They had some straight out attack situations going on in their little girl where she was struggling and things that were happening all of a sudden and fears that she was having that once we moved forward through this were just gone. And nothing had caused to start and nothing ended other than Christ coming in the midst. And it was just so amazing because I'm like, hey, how is she doing? Not a single another problem. And it was just, wow. And so that is just, I want you to understand, often a normal situation. So where sometimes we just think of it being obedience and getting wet, there is a spiritual breaking that's going on in the heavenlies as well that we just don't get. We don't understand. We don't know how it's just a very normal thing to do when someone's given their life to Christ or is that next step. And that's something I would encourage you to use as an emphasis. It's a normal response to Christ. Well, are they saved or are they not saved? That's not God's the only one that saves. That's not my position to put into. That's just a silly argument to even get involved in. I just say this is a normal thing to do immediately after accepting Christ. Sometimes people do it 5, 10 years later, but it's a normal thing to do right away. As soon as you understand, as soon as you know it, as soon as you hear it, this is what you do. It's a normal thing. Well, are you saying they're saved? That's not my position. I mean, people were saved through faith and through Christ alone. He died on the cross. This is a response that's symbolizing that in there. And so I don't diminish, nor do I try and make it into something that it's not. Then it becomes an argument rather than a celebration. Avoid the argument side of things and don't get so worried about it because a lot of churches back off baptism because they don't want to be more along the extreme version of the Catholic or the Church of Christ who says if you haven't been baptized, you're going to hell, period, and you better be baptized in our church, in our way, by our guy. So what happens is churches across America have backed off of baptism. Well, I don't want to be lumped in with them. Well, don't throw out something that's wonderful. That's like, well, we have abusive marriage going on all around the nation. We have people living together. We have same-sex couples. We have the whole, does that mean I'm not going to get married because there's a lot of abusive marriage? Well, no, that's just silly. Let's hold on to the good thing. Just don't join in on either extreme. Just say, let's keep it the way God planned, and let's celebrate it and do it. So that's kind of my view on things. And after the service, did I have some people wonder, hey, what's your position on salvation and baptism? I said, salvation comes through Christ, and this is a normal response. Well, and I just have to reiterate that a couple of times, and then, oh, okay.
I think too, just if you want to, one of the ways that Barry phrased the invitation was that if you have grown up in a different church tradition, let's say your parents had you sprinkled as baby, that you did a very good job not discounting that. And if you can just say kind of what you had said, so people can make the decision for themselves, essentially, but not saying, whoa, what you did was wrong. And I think that's very helpful to people who are in that situation.
I try and be careful about my wording. That's, once again, thinking through ahead of time. I had that written some thoughts in. I practiced it out loud by myself a few times. And best I can go back and remember it at this point without notes was that I just said, if you grew up in a church home where your mom and dad wanted to do everything that they could to know that you're going to be raised in a godly and a Christian home, you very well may have been sprinkled as a child, or you may have had someone else make that decision for you, and then raised you in a wonderful home, and you've been a believer for years. But today, I want you to know the only one who can decide to be immersed, the only person who could do that is you. Nobody can make that decision for you. And I'm so thankful for whatever your history is. You may have been a believer for years, but why don't you make it your own today, where you decide? And so I just try and say it's almost a reaffirmation mindset, or why don't you step forward yourself to do this today? Because I'm not discounting what their mom and dad did. I mean, there's no difference in what they do and where we might lay hands on and pray for in a baby dedication. We're wanting that child to grow up and to sense God's presence in their life, and one day they can accept Jesus Christ as their own Lord and Savior. But I try and acknowledge that some of you may be wanting to give your life to Christ today for the first time, and then it's normal to respond in baptism. Others may have been a believer for years, and your mom and dad have done everything, but you need to decide for yourself. And I think that's probably more the emphasis I did at that point, of just saying that you need to decide today to make it your own.
The line I remember was, God bless them for giving you a heritage.
Yeah.
That's the line that I recall the strongest. Yeah, thank you for, you know.
I don't remember that.
It is, it's on, I mean, once video comes
Thank
up,
you.
it always grabs me. God bless them for giving you a heritage, and that honors the commitment that that your parents may have made, or someone else may have made.
Devalue.
God, yeah, so God bless them for giving you a heritage, and I think that's just a fantastic way to do that.
If I could add, I was sprinkled as a baby, Addie was as a baby, but when we moved back here from Colorado, Rachel was going through RCIA classes, we were out in Castle Rock, and then we moved back here and finished those up at St. Isidore's. But the point is that she made that decision as an adult, and how much different, you know, just
But I-
2006.
Going through the RCIA, I was baptized in the Catholic Church, and it was, you know, through sprinkling, but it was still, I was still not ready. I was not ready to receive fully what that baptism meant, and to receive that relationship. It was going through tradition, is what it was still doing. It wasn't on my own terms. It was, this is what you have to do. It wasn't on my own terms. And so we're right now trying to not really even help his parents or his family understand, but help them to accept why we did it. And, you know, we're kind of the black sheep of the family right now.
It's exciting.